put together a really, I think, fast-paced, jam-packed, information-full Prezi, which is similar to PowerPoint. I think it's like PowerPoint on steroids because it's a lot more tech-friendly, it's fresh, it's modern, but it's a lot of fun if you're going to sit and watch something you haven't seen before. In the folders that we gave you, we did give you a K-5 set of pacing guides. If you flip those over and look at them on the back, you'll see some other things that our program offers. We do have teachers modeling, teaching the lessons on video. We have visual aids, graphic organizers, we have lessons. So we have lots of other things that we're going to give to you, not just today, but if you were to invest in the program, which really is an investment in your school, not just for writing scores. We hear that a lot. It's about the scores, it's about the scores, it's about the scores. That's not every day in our classrooms, and we know that. We don't want to teach to the mean. We don't want to teach to the test, but we do want our students to show that they are proficient and that they are able to apply the skills that we are teaching them in our classroom to the work that they do every day. So like Terry said, this is the age of communication. So we have a lot to compete with. We have to compete with texting, blogging, email. All of that is quick and easy, and kids don't have to put a lot of planning and thought into that. That's a whole different type of writing. And it's our job to make sure they understand that there's different forms of communication, but this is not a lost form of communication. Writing is an art. I feel like it's something that students need to have a great grasp on, and as they go through their school years, it needs to advance, and those skills need to get more and more sophisticated. Okay, so our title today is Right Steps Blast Off to Common Core State Standards Writing Success. And we're going to take writing and instruction to new heights. So I am going to ask, every time that you see a big green number, I want you to shout it out with me, because we're going to be blasting off, like we're all on
Space shuttle.
the space shuttle, but I can't think of the name of it right now. I'm having a blank. So this is just some things about me, which Terry said most of it. I am a third grade teacher. I've been a third grade teacher for 7 years. This is my first year out of the classroom, and I have to say, I don't quite know how I feel about it. I really miss the students. There's certain things I don't miss, and you can probably imagine what some of those things are. The things that I do miss is no day is ever the same. And I would walk away some days with a headache, feeling frustrated, but for the most part, I felt really rewarded in the job that I did. So our session objectives, I really want you to understand how Right Steps can help maximize student writing and growth through daily writing instruction that correlates with the Common Core State Standards. So even though it's frustrating for us to always have things changing, we get used to something. We were used to the GLICs, and now we have these Common Core State Standards, so we have to change things over. But if you look at the Common Core State Standards, they really are meant to help prepare students for college and career readiness. So making sure that they're ready to go on to college when they leave us, or making sure that they are ready to go on into a career when they leave us. It doesn't matter what career path that they choose. We need to make sure that they're prepared for that, and that we have done our job to the best of our ability. So we're going to learn best practices of implementing a true writer's workshop. Realize how easy evaluating student writing can be, because we all know that's something you go home with 30 essays, 30 folk tales, 30 of something, and now you have to go and grade them. So there is really effective and simple ways and consistent ways for us to do that. And then have time to do what you do best, which is teach. All of us went into teaching probably with the same goal in mind. We just wanted to teach students. We wanted to impact their lives every day. And we can't always do that because there's so many other things that are getting in the way of our teaching. So that's what I would like to do, is be able to allow you to do that. Okay, so what makes teaching writing so hard? So let's just field a couple responses from the audience. So what's something that makes teaching writing difficult for you? Time. Not enough time to teach it? Not enough time to plan? Not enough time to grade for it? Anything else besides time?
The editing.
Helping them work through the editing process, or helping them edit, doing a teacher edit. So that's
you got to do it one by one.
Absolutely. So time, editing.
Their writing level and their writing pace.
So that making sure the writing is developmental and paced for them, and that they have enough time to feel like they're able to do the work that we're asking them to do.
And
Anything else?
Some kids don't want to write.
Motivation.
Really don't want to write.
I don't want to do it, or I'm done, or I don't know what to write about. So, they come up with all those little excuses as to why they shouldn't write. Anything else?
Making them realize that the planning is really important. Getting their ideas from their head onto the paper takes some structure.
Because we know they have the ideas. They're there. They have them. They just don't always know how to organize them. So definitely, organization. Okay, well, the biggest one is time. And I agree with you. We don't always feel like we have the time for that independent and daily writing instruction. So when someone says to you, you need to save 40 to 50 minutes, 3 to 4 times a week, just for specific writing instruction, your jaw drops and you're like, oh, where am I going to do that? What gives then? So hopefully we're going to show you how that happens. Ever-changing curriculum. We get used to it and somebody changes it. Student motivation. Classroom management. The craft itself. Understanding that if I am teaching an imagined narrative folktale, or I'm teaching historical fiction, or now I have to teach persuasive writing to my first graders, do I really understand how to do that? And support. So not just support from a program, but support from your colleagues, support from your administration, support from your parents, support from the teachers. Okay, so this is just my little speech. I tried to put audio in here, and I was trying to get somebody actually speaking this other than me, but it didn't work. So it's just, you're going to fasten your seatbelts, hold on tight while the Right Steps Writing Rocket blasts off. Be prepared to be blown away by our program, which simplifies writing instruction, amplifies student learning, and maximizes growth and motivation. So we are go for launch. We are T-minus
10.
Okay, so time. So one way that we're going to help you meet those time expectations is we have given you a year-long program with pacing guides. And the reason why it's important is it's good for us to have a guide that's paced out that we can look at and follow. So even if your school were not able to purchase Right Steps for you, we have given you K-5 pacing guides. It's just a model for you to use so you could see how could the year be paced out so that I can make sure that I am meeting all of those Common Core standards. One of the things that the Common Core says is all students grades K-8 need to be exposed to the 4 different text types. And within those, obviously, developmental grade level skills. So that's narrative, opinion, informative, and research. And we're going to talk about this later on. So if you're taking notes, we're going to get to that. But as long as you have a program or you have a plan in mind for your curriculum that's paced out, those are really 4 areas you need to make sure that you're focusing on. And I know a lot of people, when they say that, they go into sessions that are just about Common Core writing and just looking at the Common Core. Where's the poetry? People say that it's not in there. That doesn't mean you can't teach it. So if you make a plan for yourself and you have a guide, you can still do some of the things that you love to do. Maybe you have a really fun Halloween writing activity and you don't want to get rid of it. Or maybe you do an author study and you have the kids take on the life of that and you want them to write a biography. They can still do that. But it's no longer in the course asking them to. So that's why we have to make sure that we have it paced out and that we're able to meet everything that the cores are asking of us and then do some of that fun stuff that we want to do. So you have a pacing guide, so if depending on your grade level, you can pull that out and you can look at it. I'm just going to show you a kindergarten. So they start Unit 1 in the first or second week of school, depending on, if you're able to get to that. It's usually a lot to ask you to launch your writing workshop the first week of school. They're still coming in and getting to know you. Now me, on the other hand, we had writer's workshop the first day of school. It's my favorite subject, so I couldn't wait to get it started, and I wanted to launch, and I wanted to get them used to that consistent schedule that I was going to have them on. But if you see, most of the units are anywhere from 5 to 15 lessons, depending on the grade level. Obviously, we're looking at a kindergarten, so not as many lessons, not as much time, because you're going to break it up into smaller chunks of time. So, and then what we tried to do was put in some of the focus cores on what cores really were focused on in those units. It's not all of them. Obviously, if you look at your grade levels, writing and grammar cores, there would be too many to list. But some of those were just a focus.
9.
Okay, consistency. So building consistency is important. So no matter what you have available in your schedule to teach writing, it needs to be consistent. So sometimes writing is the subject that tends to get pushed off to the side. We have an assembly today, and then we had a fire drill, 'cause somebody pulled the alarm, so then we had to practice that. And then we also had to take a math test, and then so-and-so didn't finish forever, and we had to wait for him, and somebody threw up, and we had to wait for that to get cleaned up, so we didn't get to writing today. It happens, we know it happens, but we have to make sure that we are as consistent as possible with it, because the more that they write, the better writers are going to be. We know that philosophy is true as reading, that same philosophy is true with writing. They need to be writing every day or as close to every day as possible. So our lesson plans, we did design them using the Madeline Hunter format, just so that you feel like, one, we really are running a true writer's workshop, and you're exposing them to all of the different types of learning that they can be exposed to, such as guided writing, modeled writing. You'll do a short mini lesson. They'll have independent writing time. There'll be an inventory set. There will be a closure, time to check their understanding. So I have a sample lesson that we're going to look at. So this is a grade 1, day 4, or unit 4, day 1 of 12. So the nice thing about our lesson plans is this would be your cover page, and they all look the same, so that you can keep track of what day am I on, how many days are there in this unit, what grade. So this would be opinion writing. The main focus core for this lesson is write opinion pieces in which they introduce a topic, name the book they're writing about, state an opinion, supply a reason for the opinion, and provide some sense of closure. So obviously there's going to be other things going on, but that is the focus core of this lesson. There's no media, but some of our lessons you do, there is media. Could be a PowerPoint, it could be a teacher modeling the lesson, so then you have a model to use, or you could watch it with your students and then you teach the lesson afterwards. If you have a sub that day and there's a video, writing's going to go on that day because the sub could play the video. And the lesson plans are very easy for you to hand over to a sub. I had a student teacher last fall, and she was very grateful for the Right Steps lessons, because she had to write her lessons in the Madeline Hunter lesson plan format, which some of you may remember from your bachelor degree, or going through your ed classes, the dreaded Madeline Hunter lesson plan. Like, who has time to plan like that? Well, we did, and we did it for you. So then you'll see the different components of the writer's workshop. So this would be input. We say it's going to take about 10 minutes. Now, this isn't always exact. This is just how we feel. This probably should take about 10 minutes. So the first grade curriculum was written by a first grade teacher, a very veteran first grade teacher. So as far as timing goes, she probably is pretty spot on, but you might move quicker depending on your students, and you might not. So then there's some modeling that's going to take about 15 minutes. There's a check for understanding, which takes about 5. So that could be your status of the class, so who's working on what today. You might just want to make sure they understand what the job is that they're going to go and do in their writing. And then they get some independent practice, which takes about 15 minutes. So most of us, if you're a first grade teacher, 15 minutes of independent writing is probably just enough. They might need a little bit more on some days, they might need a little bit less, but we know we're not going to ask them to write for 30 minutes independently at their seats, because we're probably not going to have them, they're not going to attend for that long. You're going to have those students that are going to be done in 5 minutes. So we want to make sure that the time is developmental.
8.
Okay, so our lessons are 100% aligned with the writing and the grammar course, or the language course. We're not a grammar program, but we do know how important it is, especially when you get to the revising and editing stage. And if you are doing a writing program where writing is writing in isolation, which is what we promote and we support teachers doing, is teaching writing in isolation, you might not have time to teach grammar in isolation as well. So we tried to give you as much grammar as we could, because it is important that students be able to identify a noun and a verb, but it's more important that they're able to apply it in their writing. My sister teaches 6th and 7th grade language arts, and I cannot tell you how many times her and I have gotten to the discussion, when do you start teaching kids to capitalize the beginning of sentences? And so, I swear, we do it. We do it every day. They are not to the application phase yet. They know they're supposed to, but why don't they? I can't answer that question, but all I know is they're not to the application phase, because they're not being expected to apply it on a daily basis. If you know the pronoun I is capitalized, then why do you continually make it lowercase? Some of it is laziness, some of it is bad habit, but they know it's supposed to be a capital. So we need to push them to that application phase. And a lot of that happens during revising and editing time. when they're really looking at their work, they've already done the planning, they've already done the drafting, now we're looking at it with a new set of eyes. I like to call it giving it a makeover. Tell my class, it's makeover time. We're gonna make over our writing, we're gonna revise and edit, which, we know makes our writing look and sound better, but that's the time for them to go through and do some of that grammar stuff and apply it. A lot of people do DLR, which is daily language review, 5 little problems or things a day that they have to correct. You can still do that, but we want to make sure that they can correct their own sentences and find some of their own mistakes and be able to fix those as well as writing of other people. So we have grade level writing and language core coverage charts, and these really are great to have because they're specific to your grade level, and it shows how many times each core is being addressed in every unit so that you can see it's kind of that data or that proof that you're actually doing what you say you're doing. So if you were to have a principal come in and they were to say, I want to see your lesson plans, our lesson plans have the cores in them. If they were to say, I want to see your coverage charts, or I want to see how you're tracking, we've done that for you as well. So this is just the 3rd grade writing coverage chart. So what you'll see going across the top is you have your text types and purposes, and then the number of times taught in units. Some of those are very specific to units, so it's not something you're going to see span all of the different types of writing. So for example, when you introduce the topic or text they are writing about, state an opinion and create organizational structures that list reasons, that's specific for opinion writing. And that specific core happens 3 times in Unit 4. So it's not like it's just introduced once. It's something that we want to make sure that they're getting repeated exposure to. And then the next one, they expose 6 times. And then B, provide reasons that support the opinion 4 different times. So that's 4 different lessons just in that unit that they're going to focus on that skill. And then this is the rest of the writing core coverage chart. So you get production and distribution, research to build and present knowledge, and then range of writing. Range of writing is really where you have students working for short periods of time and long periods of time. So maybe one sitting writing, maybe they're doing a quick write, maybe you have them write to a prompt, and they're working on a piece that they're going to take through the writing process. They're going to plan, they're going to draft, they're going to revise and edit, and then they're going to publish. So they need to be exposed to both, and that really doesn't start until 3rd grade. So if you're kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade teacher, range of writing really does not apply to you because most of the writing that they're going to be doing is going to be in one sitting. You have a kindergarten student, they might be they might do draw a picture plan, and they might label. That might be all they're going to be doing right now. So that is, range of writing is pretty much short chunks. But we have these for language too, so you can see where all the language cores are being addressed.
7.
Okay, so we are a spiraling K-5 program. So we start at kindergarten, and in kindergarten we have students writing opinion pieces. We have them writing informative, they do research, they write narrative, and they do the same thing in 1st grade and the same thing in 2nd grade. The point of that is, it's supposed to be developmental, but the skills are supposed to get more and more sophisticated. So we are growing the writer. So we are growing these students to be better, stronger writers than they ever would have been if we all were just doing our own great thing in our classroom. I know I've worked in a lot of districts and met with a lot of great teachers, and you'll have somebody doing something absolutely amazing in their classroom. The problem is the teacher the following year is doing something completely different that it's amazing. The students don't get that layering that is supposed to happen of the skills, and they're not able to make connections to the teacher the year before. The language changes. I have went into a classroom, was working with a student, and we were working with apostrophes, and he kept calling it the flying comma. I had no idea what he was talking about. They said, the flying comma, and he said, that little thing up in the air, and I'm like, an apostrophe? This is a 3rd grader. I said, an apostrophe, and he goes, a flying comma. So that was a language barrier. So even though flying comma sounds really cute, and it's fun, and kids liked it, it's an apostrophe. And he couldn't make that connection. So we have to make sure that our language is consistent with everybody. So if we're all on the same track, we're all on the same pace, we're all using the same things, we can continue to be amazing. It's the delivery of the instruction that we're able to personalize and make our own, but we need to be consistent in the information that we're giving students so that we don't have to worry about going through and explaining that an apostrophe is the flying comma that they love and hold so dear. But we're going to call it an apostrophe because when you get to 4th grade, those fourth grade teachers are not gonna wanna hear flying comma in their class, because they're gonna come to me and I'm gonna have to say it wasn't me. I don't know where it happened, but it wasn't me. So why is that important? So I took this right from the Common Core State Standards website. The standards for K-5 offer a focus for instruction each year to help ensure that students gain adequate mastery of a range of skills and applications. So we want to make sure that they are continuing to build on those skills starting in kindergarten. Each year in their writing, students should demonstrate increasingly sophistication in all aspects of language use, from vocab and syntax to the development and organization of ideas, and they should address increasingly demanding content and sources. So even though you have a kindergarten writing an opinion piece, that opinion piece is going to look different in first grade. And it's going to look different in second grade and third grade and fourth grade. And that is really our goal, is to make sure that they are able to really increase their understanding and their application. And obviously their writing is going to continue to look more and more like what we want it to look like when they leave us, when they get to middle school. As sixth graders, and some middle schools start in fifth grade, and some don't start till seventh grade, but we want to make sure that we have done the best job that we can do before we send them off to middle school, because we know life changes, instruction changes, schedules change, they're dealing with a lot of different things, social, emotional things, that they didn't have to deal and compete with in elementary school. So we need to make sure that those building blocks are firmly in place before we send them on.
Six.
Right Steps goes above and beyond what the Common Core has asked. So you will see that this is what the Common Core says we need to be doing. We don't think it's enough, and we're going to do more than that. Some of you may be familiar with, a lot of the states are given the option of adopting 10% more than what the Common Core has asked and using those in your curriculum in their districts. We just met with a school in Virginia, and they are actually going 25%. So they retain 25% of their state standards on top of what the core is asking. So these are people that are demanding rigorous things from their students. It's not a bad thing. We just want to make sure it's achievable and it's doable. So at Right Steps, we wanted to make sure that we were doing the same thing. This is what the cores say that they expect of students. This is what we expect of students as well. So we want to make sure that they're experiencing more than just that, because we know that we have to do more than that every day in our classrooms anyway. So those are the 4 text types that I talked about earlier. The narrative, it can be real and imagined. Informative, explanatory, opinion, and research. Some of this is not new news, but a lot of us were not having our first graders do opinion writing. They have them. They have many opinions. They voice them daily. It's now time for them to put that into writing. It's time for them to communicate that, understand the difference between fact and opinion. Understand that you can have an opinion, but you need to support it. So if you tell me, I hate school, it's going to make me really sad, but you need to tell me why. What are your reasons? You need to be able to support that opinion. You can't just say "cause." That's not good enough. So that's the point. It's also going to make them be better oral communicators. And I did notice that with my students the last couple years, is after we went through some of the opinion writing, when they were communicating their ideas to the rest of the class, I would find them using some of that transition language. The first reason I think we should have more recess, and it would make me smile, because I was thinking, he's really working me here, trying to convince me, but that was really the goal of the writing, is, use the transitional language, support it with reasons and details and facts. Okay, 5. This is just another way that we go above and beyond. We do really feel strongly about using the 6 traits. It's embedded in our program. It's research-based, and the 6 traits are all over in the course. It talks about organization, ideas, word choice, sentence fluency. What else does that? The 6 traits. So when you focus on the 6 traits of quality writing, it's an area that we feel like the students should be focusing on too. One of the things is it's done for you. There's lots of support that you can get out there using the 6 traits. There's free lessons online, there's books that you can buy, workbooks, so there's lots of support for the 6 traits, but there is so much evidence in the cores, it's really hard to ignore, that there's already something that's out there that's usable. There's 6 traits rubrics that if you've ever seen one before, they're fairly easy to use if you understand each of the traits. And that's one thing that we made sure that we do, is in Unit 1 of all of the grade levels, it's an introduction to 6 trait language. So when I was talking about the flying comma and the apostrophe earlier, that's a language issue that we want to make sure we're consistent on. So we start to help kids understand what are ideas, what is organization, what is word choice, What is sentence fluency, and how can we achieve those things in our writing to make sure that our writing is more than substandard? We want to make sure that it's outstanding. So we want students to want to get a 6 on the rubric, even though we know that the 6 is really the absolute best work that you've ever seen. We want them to feel like it's achievable, that they can do that. They can get a 6 in ideas. They can get a 6 in conventions. We just have to show them how to get there. So why? Why the 6 traits? This is an example of, this is taken from 5th grade. So it talks about how the lesson, student samples, and rubrics all use the 6 traits of quality writing. So if you see for 5th grade, these are some of the 5th grade cores that are addressed specifically to the 6 traits in the CCSF. So ideas, establish a situation, introduce narrator and or characters, develop experiences and events. Taken right from the Common Core. That's exactly what the 6 traits defines ideas as. And then you can see those are just the rest of them. So that was a way for us to make sure that we had a tool that we could use that already existed, with the 6 traits, and that we could use that so teachers could connect to it. So before I move on, is there anybody that has any questions yet? Because I want to make sure that we're able to address those questions, because it's important that your questions get answered more so than we get through the whole entire presentation.
I was looking through the Common Core standards and I noticed they talk about an argument paper. Is that the same as an opinion paper?
Yeah, it's just the wording. When I was in a middle school classroom at the beginning of the year, they kept calling it persuasive writing. They kept talking about the persuasive, like there's really this huge push for persuasive writing. It is the same thing. It just depends on what format or text structure are you going to use. So if you're doing persuasive writing, you really are trying to convince someone to feel and think the same way that you do versus writing an opinion paper. But they all go under that same genre of persuasive writing or argumentative writing. So if you're doing an argument piece, you're presenting an argument, you still have to back that up with reason, support, details, facts to support your argument. Same thing with your opinion. And persuasive falls under that same genre. Are there other questions at this time?
The 6 traits have been very helpful as they're embedded within the Right Steps program because it helps me to keep the students focused on the different aspects of writing. For example, organization. It has been very useful in helping the students keeping their thoughts organized, which ties in with ideas as well, because when the students are generating their ideas, and they keep in mind, well, I need to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they also keep in mind that they need to have everything sequenced, which actually ties into sentence fluency with the first, second, third transition words. So it's been very helpful.
4. The 6 traits rubric. So we've already talked about those. And one of the things that we thought about when we were thinking, okay, how are we going to assess the writing? So we knew the assessment piece was going to be huge. We put a lot of thought into it, and we also wanted to make sure that the assessment piece was consistent starting in kindergarten, because a lot of us have taught different grade levels. You might have been a kindergarten teacher, and then the next year you're a 4th grade teacher, and then all of a sudden you're a 2nd grade teacher. So how can we ensure that assessment is consistent for you as well? Not just for your students, but for you too. And making sure that if you had a student teacher, or, heaven forbid, you were to get ill and have to be out of the classroom, could somebody that stepped into your class use the rubric and be able to continue on? So we put a lot of thought into that. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to increase student understanding of expectations. So one of the things that we do is the students score other students' writing. Usually it's anonymous. They're not scoring their best friends, or they're not scoring the student sitting across from them. They're anonymous student samples, but they are authentic. We've been collecting them from schools for the past couple years. So a lot of schools that we work with will ask that. So if we start working with your school, we might ask, can we have some of your students' work? It will remain anonymous, but it's a way for us to provide authentic writing that's really happening in the classrooms every day. It's not going to be as beneficial for my students if I go and write a piece and try to pass it off as the students. We've all done it because we're trying to find that teaching point. There's work out there for us to use, and you can use work in your own students' work in your classroom too, but they really like grading or assessing other people's work. They're really very critical and good at it, and then when they go to do their own, they don't always notice some of those things going on, but they can in somebody else's. We're really good at it. So, and they also need to be able to reflect on what we call their glows and grows. And this is something that I love about Right Steps. You know, I feel good about it because I think it gives my kids confidence. And it also makes them feel like they can share things. So we talk about a glow as something we are really good at. Something that shines and stands out. A grow is something we need to work on, and we all have glows and grows. We all have areas of writing that we're good at. So I might be really good at planning. I might be really good at word choice, but my conventions needs a little work. That's my grow area. I cannot tell you how many students in my class last year could come up to me and talk about their glows and grows. And it's good to see that because they're accepting their weaknesses. We don't do that naturally. As human beings, we don't want to accept our weaknesses because usually it's not good enough for us because we have such high expectations for ourselves. But if I know I have an area I need to work on, I'm going to work hard to turn that grow into a glow. And I had students say that to me exactly. I had a student last year that she just worked really, really hard every day, and no matter how hard she worked, I don't think she ever felt like it was enough, that she just put a lot of expectations on herself. But she had told me at the end of the year, she didn't do her spelling was a very weak area for her. And she said, well, conventions is still a grow for me, but I think my spelling is a glow now because I know how to find resources so that I can help my spelling. Those were her words exactly, because we give them tools. We give them word walls. We have privacy folders. We encourage them to use the dictionary. We encourage them to use other students as a resource. If you've got a friend in class and they're a really good speller, you should go and check into that resource. So I always had a rule in my class, and it was ask 3, then me. Otherwise, I'd have my little duckling trail of students following me, wanting me to spell everything for them. It's not that I didn't want to, that wasn't the greatest use of my time. We have resources, our classroom is full of them. We have word walls, we have dictionaries, and even though a 3rd grader, they're not very adept at using the dictionary. They want to. They think the dictionary is a pretty cool tool. It's a little overwhelming. But you also have somebody sitting across from you that won the spelling bee. Did you ask that friend how to spell that word? And obviously we want that friend to be working on their own writing and not spelling everything, but it's just a way for them to understand that there are other things that we can do to get answers. And if I can't spell that word correctly, I can still move on with my writing. But that was something that she really felt was a grow area for her, but it turned into a glow because she learned how to get resources for it. So this is an example of the rubric. So it is a 6-point rubric. And a lot of people say, why did you go with a 6-point rubric? It seems like it's a lot. Like you've got to give them a score from 1 to 6. I'll tell you my reasoning for this. If you think about a 1 or a 2, those are the lowest scores. I always like to divide the rubric in half. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6. So when I grade them with my students, we'll put an anonymous student sample up, and we'll score it together. Usually not everything all at once. We'll score maybe 2 or 3 areas. We split the rubric right in half. So, and I'll ask them, do you think this, let's say we're looking at ideas, do you think they're at the bottom half of the rubric, a 1, 2, 3, or do you think they're at the top half, a 4, 5, 6? So then they're able to quickly decide bottom or top. And then we look at, okay, let's say they're in the top, a 4, 5, 6. A 6 would be the absolute best paper you've ever seen for ideas. How many of you think it's the absolute best paper you've ever seen? A lot of them will agree that it's probably not, but there are times where it is. So that means we've got to decide between a 4 and a 5. And if you look at rubric scoring, if we're all within 1 point of each other, we're pretty close. So if some students say a 4 and some say a 5, we're close. But if someone says a 2 and I say a 5, then we have something that we need to sit down and discuss. The same is true if you're scoring and then sharing with colleagues, which we did. We would bring a couple students' work that we had graded, and then we would swap, and then we would see. So if my other 3rd grade teacher gave a student a 4 in something and I gave him a 2, there's a little bit of a discrepancy. So either I grade too easy, or I'm assessing too easy, or maybe she's too hard, or vice versa. Or maybe we just didn't understand that altogether. Maybe we weren't looking at it just for ideas. We were thinking about, well, there was a lot of spelling mistakes. Well, that's something different. That goes in convention. So scoring them with the students is a way for them to understand that each of those is separate. So it doesn't matter if it's riddled with spelling mistakes. Were their ideas good? Or it doesn't matter if it was, there was no punctuation. And anybody ever seen a paper that has 1 punctuation and it's at the very end? They've got all of that, and then all of a sudden, boop, They just plopped a period down at the end. So you're thinking, I would have passed out if I would have been reading this, because we know a period is a courtesy for us to stop after one thought. So it's just one of those things, though it doesn't matter. If I'm looking at it for organization, it's okay if there's no punctuation. We're going to look at that separately. So we'll just kind of zoom in on the rubric a little bit. So you'll see for ideas and content, you'll see the course that ideas and content addresses for this type of writing, which is the sixth grade folktale rubric. So W3.3, W3.3A, and B, 3.4, and 3.5. That's just a way for you, again, to ensure that if I have a student who gets a 1 in ideas and content, if I am using a core-specific, maybe my report cards are now very core-specific, which we're seeing those, people moving to core-based report cards, then it's going to be pretty easy for me to put a score or to put a grade in there. They wouldn't be proficient. And it wouldn't matter if you're using letter grades, if you're using percentages, if you're using a number, 1, 2, 3, if you're using an O for outstanding or a P for, it doesn't matter. We would know that if that student got a 1 in ideas and content, they're not meeting the expectations that we've asked of them. And it gives us time to evaluate, was it my instruction? Was it their understanding? And how would I improve that next time? Or how am I going to make sure when I get into the next unit that that student, I'm going to support them with their ideas and content?
15 minutes left.
What's that?
15 minutes left.
Okay. Okay, 3.
3.
Okay, generate confidence and motivation. I really wish there was some magic dust you could just sprinkle across your classroom and everybody is really excited to write, but I will give you one little thing that I did do. I went and I bought sprinkles, just the colored sprinkles, and I took all the paper off and I made a new label, and it was writing dust. And it just sounds like this is really a corny thing, but they just weren't wanting to write like for a whole week. They were all really in a lull. Nobody was wanting to do any work. So I'm like, I got to think of something. So I got these sprinkles and went around and everybody got some sprinkles on their desk. And of course they could eat them. They wrote furiously that day because of those sprinkles. And it's something so 99-cent sprinkles got my kids to write. I don't care what it took. The point is, the lessons usually are very, very motivating. The kids are excited to write, but even at that point, that day, that week, they didn't want to. So I had to pull out something else out of my little toolbox, and I gave them all some sprinkles, and they all thought they really had some magic going, and they wrote well. So one thing is, the units are engaging. So kids love to write narrative. They love to write made-up stories. We know that they do. They just usually don't know how to get started, and they need some help, and they need some support, and the biggest piece is organization. If they can get their ideas organized, then they're able to write it more effectively. But we know they have these great creative ideas, and we don't want to stifle that. We want to encourage them to be creative. So we have lots of units and lessons where kids are writing historical fiction, they're writing legends, they're writing folk tales, and they all do that under the imagined narrative, so it still meets that core. So they're still writing made-up stories, but they're using narrative elements in which to do that. So other things, graphic organizers, and then of course the author share. We know they can't wait to share and read their work with others.
Every time I learn about new stuff, it just gets me excited. And because one time when Ms. Burton told us to write about folk tales, she said you have to have one good character, one bad character, and one magical character. And I like magic people. So I put myself in the story, and my name was Darius the Fairy Embry. So in that story, I was like a little fairy flying around, and an outcast just fell on his evil character. His name was Knucklehead. He tried to take over the universe, but then there was a superhero named Milkman. So then he used his milk vision to melt Knucklehead down.
I have worked with this. I cannot tell you how much I love this kid. Like every time I have been in his class or, just in wherever he's at, I'm like, we need to give him a job for Right Steps. He can just come and talk about his writing because it just, it just feel good. It makes you feel good when kids talk about their writing like that. Okay, so we do have lots of graphic organizers. One of the things that we wanted to make sure we did was that they were consistent and obviously developmental. So just for example, when we're doing expository writing, whether it's opinion, informative, or research, we use the same type of graphic organizer. And I know there's hundreds of graphic organizers for you out there to access. We want students to get very good at using one. So if you use 20 different graphic organizers for things, even though it's great and they're getting a taste of things, they're not going to get really good at using it independently. And that was our goal, is can we give them something developmental that they can use consistently and then eventually independently to organize their writing. So in second grade, they do the 2-square paragraph planning sheet. So they're going to come up with their topic sentence. So maybe my grandma is the best cook. Maybe this is going to be a piece about grandma's cooking. So in paragraph 1, they need to come up with their first idea. Why is grandma's cooking the best? Maybe she just makes a variety of things, and they're going to support that with things that she cooks. She makes spaghetti and meatballs. She makes mac and cheese. And then they come down to paragraph 2. Now you need another reason why grandma's cooking is the best. And then they're going to support that with reason. So it's a sheet that there's plenty of space for them to write on. And I did have one teacher that had a student with some OT concerns. She said his writing is really big. It's a little disorganized. He can't fit in the boxes. She cut it in half and enlarged it, and he got 2 bigger sheets. It doesn't matter. It fit his needs. It was a way for her to easily accommodate the fact that he had some OT concerns and some handwriting concerns, but he was still going to be able to plan for his ideas. The same thing, when they move into third grade, they go from the 2-square to the 5-square. So now they're still going to come up with their topic sentence, so we'll zoom in on it. I apologize. So in the middle, they come up with their topic sentence. And now that's not going to be the only thing that's going to be in paragraph 1, but this is them getting their organization. And sometimes that very first sentence is crucial for them to understanding that this is really what this whole piece is going to be about. So if you say soccer is the best sport, everything else that I'm going to read about is going to be you supporting why soccer is the best sport. So then they have the 4 squares that they fill in. Square 2 being the first reason why soccer would be the first best sport. And then they're supporting details. So we're making sure that they're understanding that, getting to understand that a paragraph really is at least 5 good sentences. Because we know as they move later into middle school, or they're looking at 7 good sentences, between 5 and 7. If you ask someone what makes a good paragraph, they'll usually say between 5 and 7 sentences. We want to make sure that they're understanding that we're not just filling that void just with whatever. We're really trying to come up with valid reasons and details. And then they'll write their conclusion sentence, which there's lessons for that. We show them how to write a good conclusion, and we call it the wrap-up, where now you're just going to kind of go and reiterate some of the bigger points that you made in your piece. So they're learning how to summarize, an important skill. And it's something that you could use these graphic organizers in reading. You can use them in science and social studies. So once they get pretty good at using them in writing, and you've modeled how to use it and they've had ample opportunity, then they can use them in some of the other subject areas. And you're keeping it a consistent thing. So third grade, I teach third grade. Our first couple times using this graphic organizers, yeah, they needed a little more help and support, but then they used it again the next year in 4th grade. Piece cake. Used it in 5th grade, same thing. They're really able to elaborate and really plan better for their details. It takes a little bit of time to put those things in place. So if I want a 5th grader to be able to use it with very little help from me, then they needed to use it the year before, and hopefully the year before. So keeping in mind that if your school should come on board with Right Steps, which we really hope you do, it's going to take a little time, at least a good year under your belt. So sometimes it's that first year that makes you want to pull your hair out, because you say, oh, they don't get this, they've never seen this. They will. They will. The next year, just know that it will be even better.
They start using the 5-square paragraph organizer in 3rd grade, so they use it in 4th grade, and when they come to 5th grade, they know how to use it really well. 5th grade students have great ideas, they just need some assistance on organizing and sequencing the ideas. And those graphic organizers and planning sheets allow them to do this. And gradually over time, they can go off on their own and do the 5-square paragraph organizer on their own, sketch it on their own without a copy of it, and then apply that skill of using the planning sheets all across the board with science, math, and writing and social studies.
Okay.
2.
So one way that we really want to make sure that you're successful, that your students are able to write, is we give a lot of support. And that always comes with the purchase of the program. We give a free kickoff. So we'll come in unless you're too far for us to travel to. We'll come virtually via Skype or something else. We come and we help you get familiar with your materials, make sure everybody knows how to get started, make sure questions are answered. So that support piece is really critical. I don't know if you've ever been handed a new curriculum but not given any support or training for it. We know how frustrating that is. We need the training. It's not, we are teachers, we can figure it out, but our time is very valuable. And our free time is usually next to none. So we need the training and support, and we need someone that we feel like we can go to have questions answered that are specific to us. If I'm having a concern with my classroom, my instruction, I need someone that I can go to for that. And we make sure that we offer that. I was told when I came on board to Right Steps, I didn't have a set of hours. I worked 24 hours a day around the clock. So that's my new job, is I work 24 hours a day around the clock. But I did that before. I was usually up in the middle of the night grading papers and doing something else. So I've just swapped one thing for the next. But if you send us an email, we're going to answer it. If you call us, we're going to answer it. And if we can't, we'll find someone who can. Okay, so this is, we'll see if it goes. This is an example of, this is Suzanne Klein, and this is her modeling teaching a lesson. It's about 22 minutes, so we're not going to watch it, but I just wanted to give you, we just lost our signal.
You have a cord?
Yeah. There's only a few minutes left, so I can do the rest of it without that. But we have videos, so that's another way that we support you. So if you were to look at a lesson and say, well, that's a little confusing, we have teachers modeling teaching the lessons. And one thing we're really trying to do right now with Right Steps is get more teachers on board teaching the lessons. Because right now it's a lot of Suzanne, because she is the founder and she's the one that kind of started, videoing the lessons. We have some other Right Steps teachers. There's some videos. I'm on some of the videos, but we want to make it look even more authentic. So we want to have videos of the rest of you teaching Right Steps lessons. It's just sometimes great to have somebody else, be able to watch somebody else and say, that's how I would do it. Or, you know what, I like the way she did it, but I think I would do this a little bit differently. So having that model. And that's another way we support. And then we also come into the schools and we do PD, coaching day. So, and that's one of my jobs, and it's actually my favorite job. The most favorite thing that I do for Right Steps is going to schools and work with teachers. And sometimes, if they let me, I get to go in and teach a lesson to their kids, and then I get to connect with the kids again. So hopefully if you come on board, you'll let me come in and work with your kids a little bit, because I really miss that piece. So, and then the number one thing is we do,
On support, mention the email, that you're accessible by email. Our Lynn is accessible by email.
Yes, you can find any of us from Right Steps by email. My business card is in there, and my email is on there, but really, there's a lot of us that you can find at rightstepswriting.com. Suzanne, who is the CEO and founder, she would answer your questions. You would just go Suzanne at Right Steps Writing. Terry, the Right Steps Writing, and then Arlene is actually she does all of the scheduling for the coaching. So if you had a coaching need, she would be able to help you too. But really, you can find any of us at rightstepswriting.com. But the number one thing that we do, even though I lost my video, is we do have traditional lessons in big binders and units like this, which this tends to look a little intimidating, a little daunting. Like, I'm going to do that in a year? Like, I don't know. But we also have all of our lessons online for eRight Steps, which is our online lesson portal. It's an amazing tool, so anybody that feels fairly tech savvy, even if it's just going on a website, doing some clicking around, you can find all of the lessons and units on there. And one thing that we're going to give to you, or that you're able to, is you can get a free 30-day trial. So you can get one unit for your grade level for 30 days that you can print and save. So if you're a first grade teacher and you want to go check out that opinion unit, you just go to rightstepswriting.com. On the right-hand corner, there's a big green button that says Teacher, sign up for your own 30-day trial. I encourage you to do that. Go get a unit. See how you think. Try some of the lessons. And if you think, I'm not going to be able to get to that before the holidays, you can save it. You can download it onto a flash drive, you can download it onto your computer, or you can print it out, and you can teach it after the first of the year. Or you might say, I'm going to wait and go get that trial when I know I can access that. But that's where you can find all of our videos. We have just tons of things on our website for you to access. We have a newsletter that comes out about quarterly, I think, and it's always got teachers. So it's always different teachers that we've accessed and said, you do this really great in your class. We want to put that on. So lots of tips and tricks that are on there as well. Okay, so is there any questions before we wrap up? From me or from Terry? You can come and see us at the booth. We'd love to see you. If you want to sign up for a trial today, it doesn't have to start today. We could have it start November 1st or December 31st, but it'll automatically enter you in a drawing for an iPad, which we're drawing for Saturday morning. And we're going to be giving away 10 subscriptions for a full year of writing lessons for your grade level. So if you come and see us before noon today, you will be in that drawing because we're drawing at noon, and you could be a year's winner. You'd get a year's worth of writing lessons to eWrite Steps, so you'd have access to all of that stuff. So make sure you come to the booth to see us. We'd love to talk with you more. So thank you so much for coming. We appreciate your time, and have a great conference.